Okay, seems to be nice. Okay, I was thinking if there was anything that would prohibit me from doing a Bible study. I'm getting feedback somehow. Can't figure it out. Uh, oh well. All right. Continue the Bible study. Read Genesis 4. Now the man had relations with Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain. And she said, I've gotten a man child with the help of the Lord. Again she gave birth to his brother Abel, and Abel was the keeper of the flocks. But Cain was a tiller of the ground. So it came about in the course of the time that Cain brought an offering to the Lord of the fruit of the ground. Abel on his part also brought offerings of the firstlings of his flock and their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and for his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain became very angry, and his countenance fell. Then the Lord said to Cain, Why are you angry? Why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it. Cain told Abel his brother, and it came about when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. Okay, this is the first conflict recorded in history. The problem was that Cain didn't have an acceptable sacrifice. And the reason it wasn't acceptable was because it wasn't a blood offering. So this is what the third prophecy about the blood sacrifice. Abel, on his part, also brought of the firstling of his flocks and of the fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain, for his offering, he had no regard. Cain became very angry and his countenance fell. This is a snapshot of what human nature is like. If you do good, you'll be happy. And if you don't do good, you are not going to be very happy. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be angry. You're not going to have the joy of the Lord. This is the way things are. This is reality. This is truth. And seems like only the Bible is telling you the truth. So Abel already is looking forward to the provision that would be made on our behalf. And he's offering a sacrifice, a blood sacrifice of the best of his flock. And this is the indication of a perfect sacrifice. It's one that's essential to our existence, our being able to live before a holy God. Of course, everybody is covered by this existence of the provision for our sin. Otherwise, God could have nothing to do with us. He wouldn't be able to talk to us. And here we have it in the very beginning, where God is talking to everyone, including Cain. Nothing has changed. There's nothing new under the sun. There is no new teaching. There is no new doctrine. Don't believe it. Nothing new under the sun. God speaks to everyone. And the reason he's able to speak to everyone is because of the provision that he himself made for us. And here we have a sacrifice looking forward to that provision that would be made for us. Then Cain went out of the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain had relations with his wife and conceived and gave birth to Enoch. This is not the same Enoch that we know of. And he built a city and called the name of the city Enoch after the name of his son. Now to Enoch was born Irad, and Irad became the father of Mehujael. And Mehujael became the father of Methushael, and Methushael became the father of Lamech. And this is not the same Lamech that we know of. Lamech took himself 2 wives. The name of the one was Adah. The name of the other was Zilha. Adah gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal, and he was the father of those who played the lyre and pipe. As for Zilha, she also bore and gave birth to Tubal-Cain, the forger of all implements of bronze and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Okay, there's always something interesting here when you read the Bible. Of course, this is a record of a time before the flood, before the destruction of the world. And we have a worker of bronze and iron. Of course, bronze is a mixture of copper and such. But already we have the beginning of learning arts, learning crafts, beginning of technology. Cain had relations with his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch. And he built a city, called the name of the city Enoch after the name of his son. Okay, I already read that. Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zilha, listen to my voice, you wives of Lamech. Give heed to my speech, for I have killed a man for wounding me, and a boy for striking me. If Cain is avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. Adam had relations with his wife again. She gave birth to a son, named him Seth. For she said, God has appointed me another offspring in place of Abel, for Cain killed him. To Seth, to him also the son was born, and called his name Enosh. The men began to call upon the name of the Lord. Then men began to call on the name of the Lord. Okay, there were people called the wise men, and according to some records contained in the Vatican somewhere, that these wise men claimed to be followers of Seth, and they were called Magi because they would wait for God to act or for God to speak. And this is how they found the Lord when he was born in Jerusalem. They believed in God, followed God, and actually came and found Messiah at the instruction of the Lord. So this is interesting. Here we see that Cain was allowed to live, Lamech was allowed to live, and they were murderers. So maybe God is not such a bad person after all. Of course, by rights, maybe they should have been, removed from the earth. But God is merciful and long-suffering, compassionate, and he knows the days of people are limited. Genesis 5. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day when God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female. He blessed them, named them man in the day when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he became the father of a son in his own likeness, according to his image, and named him Seth. Then the days of Adam after he became the father of Seth were 800 years. And he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Seth lived 105 years and became the father of Enosh. Then Seth lived 807 years after he became the father of Enosh, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Seth were 912, and he died. Enosh lived 90 years and became the father of Kenan. Then Enosh lived 815 years and he became the father of Kenan, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. Kenan lived 70 years and became the father of Mahalalel. And Kenan lived 840 years. He became the father of Mahalalel. And he had other sons and daughters. So the days of Kenan were 910 years, and he died. Mahalalel lived 65 years, and became the father of Jared. Then Mahalalel lived 830 years after he became the father of Jared, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. Jared lived 162 years and became the father of Enoch. Then Jared lived 800 years and he became the father of Enoch. After he became the father of Enoch. And he had other sons and daughters. So the days of Jared were 962 years and he died. Enoch lived 65 years and became the father of Methuselah. Then Enoch walked with God 300 years after he became the father of Methuselah. And he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him after 365 years. Methuselah lived 187 years up to the time of the flood and became the father of Lamech. Then Methuselah lived 782 years after he became the father of Lamech, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And the total number of years up until the flood were 1,656 years. And we know this from this genealogy. Lamech lived 182 years and became the father of a son. Now he called his name Noah, saying, "This one will give us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands, rising from the ground which the Lord has cursed." Then Lamech lived 595 years after he became the father of Noah, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Lamech were 770 years, and he died. Noah was 500 years old, and Noah became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And of course, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, that's what we are. We are descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shemites, who were Sumerians, Hamites, who were Africans, and Japhethites, who were Europeans and perhaps Asians. So it's good to read and learn about our history. Genesis 6. Now it came about when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, on the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God, that the daughters of men, let me try again. Sons of God saw the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the land, were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, that they bore children to them. Those were mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Okay, this is some controversy around this. My position is that there's not any extraterrestrial or angelic thing going on here. For the simple reason that God doesn't have salvation for angels, and that the provision is for mankind, so that it wouldn't make sense to have a half human, half angelic being, or half extraterrestrial being, because there is no provision for them. Okay, then the Lord saw the wickedness of man was great on the earth, that every intent and the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on earth, and he was grieved in his heart. The Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land. From man to animals to creeping things to birds of the sky, for I'm sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And this is the reason why we are living today. Because Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Of course, he wouldn't utterly forsake us. And he still had his provision for us to be born. Messianic prophecies. These are the records of the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their ways upon earth. Sounds a little bit like today. Then God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has become before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them, and behold, I am about to destroy them with the earth. Make for yourselves an ark of gopher wood, and you shall make the ark with rooms, and shall cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you shall make it. The length of the ark 300 cubits, its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. You shall make a window for the ark. You shall finish it to a cubit from the top, and set the door of the ark inside of it. You shall make it with the lower, second, and third decks. Behold, I bringing the flood of water upon the earth to destroy. I am bringing to destroy all flesh, in which the breath of life. from under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall perish, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark. You, your sons, your wife, your sons' wives with you, and every living thing of all flesh you shall bring two of every kind into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds after their kind, of the animals after their kind, of every creeping thing on the ground after its kind, two of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. As for you, take for yourself some of all the food which is edible, and gather it to yourself, and it shall be for food for you and them. Noah did according to all that God had commanded him, so he did. Okay. This is also a picture of salvation, because it was a salvation of mankind, a remnant of mankind. And I guess we'll go to the next chapter. Genesis 7. Then the Lord said to Noah, enter the ark, you and all your household, for you alone I have seen to be righteous before me in this time. You shall take with you every clean animal by sevens, a male and his female, and of the animals that are not clean, two, a male and his female. Also the birds of the sky by sevens, male and female, to keep offspring alive on the face of the earth. For after 7 more days I will send rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and I will blot out from the face of the land every living thing that I have made. Noah did according to all that the Lord had commanded him. Okay, there's a little detail here. Shall take with you of every clean animal by sevens, a male and his female, and of the animals that are not clean, two, a male and his female. Of the birds of the sky by sevens, male and female, to keep offspring alive on the face of the earth. So, birds were clean. Uh, I guess some of the birds aren't clean, but some of the birds are. Majority of birds. Um, yeah, so there was a clean animal. A clean animal is like deer, cows, goats. So they had 7 on the ark, which is a little piece of information a lot of people don't know about, don't pay much attention to, but it's an important detail. Because you always have these people that say, well, what did they eat? What did the animals eat after they released all the animals? Now Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came upon the earth. Then Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him entered the ark because of the water of the flood. Of clean animals and animals that are not clean, and birds and everything that creeps on the ground. There went into the ark to Noah by twos, male and female, as God had commanded. Came about after 7 days that the water of the flood came upon the earth, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month. On the day all the fountains of the great deep burst open, and the floodgates of the sky were opened, and the rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. really self-explanatory. The earth was not the same as it is today. It was the original creation of the earth. As we read earlier, water would come up from the ground at night to water the plants. It was a different kind of system. Now we live on hard rock and we have to cultivate the ground. Hopefully it's good ground for crops. Now we have to do something to make it produce. And we have the fountains of the deep opening up and the floodgates of the sky were opened. So there was a lot of water above that came down, and there was a lot of water from underneath that came up from the ground. And so this would have the effect of basically liquefying the earth. So it just became a whole series of sediments that were deposited and hardened into rock. Okay. On the very same day, Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons with him entered the ark, they and every beast after its kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth after its kind, and every bird after its kind, all sorts of birds. They went into the ark to Noah by twos, all flesh in which was the breath of life. Those that entered, male and female, of all flesh, entered as God had commanded him, and the Lord closed it behind him. Okay. Now there's other accounts of a lot of what we're reading here. There's 2 other accounts of the same occurrence of the global flood, and with additional details. You take them or leave them, but they're there. And it's the same history of the same people. There's no other history of any other people. It's the only history we have. And it's pretty well kept as far as that goes. Considering you have 3 different records of the same thing, it's pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of history we don't have records of. The English history, the records were all destroyed by the Roman Catholic Church. We don't have the records. That's why there's a lot of mythology about their ancestors. And they don't even have a verifiable genealogy of the kings or anything, basically. It's just horrible. Well, here we have all the generations, all the records. And of course, it's not of all the people, because there was a lot of people that were born that were not on the ark. So they didn't believe and they were left behind. One of the records says that the people were banging on the door trying to get in the ark, and the wild animals chased them away. So you could envision the dinosaurs chasing away people from the ark. Anyway, the flood came upon the earth for 40 days, and the water increased and lifted up the ark so that it rose above the earth. The water prevailed and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. The water prevailed more and more upon the earth, so that the high mountains everywhere under the heavens were covered. The water prevailed 15 cubits higher, and the mountains were covered. All flesh that moved on earth perished, birds and cattle and beasts, and every swimming thing that swarms on the earth, and all mankind, and all that was on dry land, all in whose nostril was the breath of the Spirit of life, died. And he blotted out every living thing that was upon the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things to birds of the sky. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left together with those that were with him in the ark. The water prevailed upon the earth 150 days. Okay, Genesis 8. God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark, and God caused the wind to pass over the earth, and the water subsided. Also the fountains of the deep and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the rain from the sky was restrained. And the water receded steadily from the earth, and at the end of 150 days the water decreased. In the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark rested upon the mountains of Ararat. The water decreased steadily until the 10th of the month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. Then it came about at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent out a raven, and it flew here and there until the water was dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove from him to see if the water was abated from the face of the land, but the dove found no resting place for the sole of her foot. So she returned to him into the ark, for the water was on the surface of all the earth. Then he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark himself. So he waited yet another 7 days and again sent out the dove from the ark. The dove came to him toward evening. Behold, in her beak was a freshly picked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the water was abated on the earth. Then he waited yet another 7 days and sent out the dove, but she did not return to him again. Now it came about in the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st of the month, the water was dried up from the earth. Then Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the surface of the ground was dried up. In the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God spoke to Noah, saying, Go out of the ark, you and your son's wife with you. Bring out every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may breed abundantly on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wives, or his wife and his sons' wives with him, every beast, every creeping thing, every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out by their families from the ark. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took every clean animal and every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. The Lord smelled the soothing of aroma. And the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth, and I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. That's while the earth remains. It's pretty straightforward. The one thing that I like to note is that they wouldn't leave the ark. They didn't want to leave the ark until they were sure that it was safe outside. Sounds like a song. Well, I don't want to spend too much time. I don't even know if it's recording. Okay. So I guess I'll stop right here for now. And I hope the best for everyone. I hope that everyone learns from the reading of the scriptures. The Bible says not to forget public reading of scriptures. It's very important because there's so many little details in scripture that people need to live. Whether I can point it out or not, they're there. It's God's word, and God's word doesn't return void without doing what was meant to do. God bless everybody. May you walk in truth and the light and the joy of the Lord.